I used to think I was the responsible one. You know, the one who kept everything running while everyone else just lived. My name's Blake. I'm 32, and I've always been the type to handle things quietly. Bills, groceries, surprise vet emergencies, last-minute school projects for my younger siblings. I stepped into that role years ago, partly because I wanted to help, and partly because no one else ever did. I never expected a thank you, but I guess I also didn't expect what happened either. Growing up, my mom had this way of making love feel conditional. Like, if you were useful, you were valued. If you stepped out of line, or worse, demanded something for yourself, you were selfish. I learned early on to keep my head down and just do the work. My dad left when I was 10, and after that, I sort of became the man of the house by default. My younger brother, Trevor, was only 5 then. I helped raise him, practically. Helped with homework, stayed home when he was sick, even taught him how to ride a bike. And then there's my mom, Marcy. She's 61 now, but somehow still finds ways to make everyone feel like they owe her something. She had her moments of warmth, sure, but they always came with a catch. A favor, an unspoken debt. For years, I helped. I paid off the last of her car loan when I was 25. I covered the utilities more times than I can count. She'd call me when the internet wasn't working, when the water heater was making that sound again, or when her TV remote just died. I was always there. Even after I moved out at 28 and bought my own small place across town, I still made the drive over every other weekend. Still helped manage her bills because she didn't trust online banking. Still brought groceries when she said she forgot her debit card. And I didn't really mind. I figured, family, right? It wasn't until last year that things started to shift in a way I couldn't ignore. Trevor, who's 27 now, had just gotten engaged to a girl named Megan. Megan's fine. A little opinionated, a little fake sweet, but I tried to get along. She never really warmed up to me, though. She always made this face when I showed up at family dinners, like I was the backup singer at a concert. She only wanted a headline. Still, I didn't want to cause problems, so I kept showing up, kept being the good son, the reliable older brother. I have a son, too. His name's Ethan. He's 7. Smart, a little shy, but endlessly curious. His mom and I split up when he was 3, but we co-parent well enough. Ethan stays with me most weekends, and honestly, he's the best part of my week. Watching him build Lego cities or try to read the newspaper like a grown-up, it's grounding. When things feel messy, he's the one thing that makes sense. Last summer, I decided to do something big. I'd gotten a decent bonus at work, and I wanted to use it to give the family something we hadn't had in years, a real vacation. Not just a weekend trip to the lake or a backyard barbecue. A full-blown, proper family vacation. I spent weeks researching. Found a beautiful rental cabin in the mountains. For bedrooms, a game room for the kids, a hot tub, close to hiking trails, something for everyone. I fronted the cost. Over $4,000, but I figured I could eat it. I didn't ask anyone to pay me back. I just wanted a memory, a moment where we could all be together and actually enjoy each other. I told Mom about it in May. Her response? We'll see. That was it. No excitement, no questions, just a vague non-committal shrug like I'd offered to bring over a new casserole recipe. But I pressed on. Booked the place for late July. Sent out a group message with all the details. Trevor never replied. Megan responded with a thumbs-up emoji. Classic. Still, I was excited. I started planning little things to make it more special. Esmores kits, a movie night schedule, even made laminated itineraries because I'm that guy. Ethan was over the moon. He asked me every weekend how many days were left until the big cabin trip. Then, 2 weeks before we were supposed to leave, I noticed something strange. I was over at Mom's house fixing her leaky kitchen faucet when I overheard her on the phone with Trevor. She was talking about plans for the end of the month and mentioned flights. I thought maybe they were going somewhere before the cabin trip, so I asked her about it when she got off the phone. Oh, she said casually, wiping her hands on a dish towel. Trevor and Megan invited me to join them on a trip to Florida. Just a little getaway. Nothing big. To Florida? I blinked. When? She hesitated. Well, it overlaps a bit with the cabin trip, so I guess we'll have to miss that. But you go? You and Ethan. You'll still have fun. I remember standing there, holding a wrench in my hand, not really sure what to say. I laughed at first, because I genuinely thought she was joking. You're bailing on the trip I planned? The one I paid for? I asked. She gave me that look, the one that says I'm overreacting. Blake, it's not a big deal. Trevor already had this planned. And honestly, it just seemed simpler this way. Simpler? I said, stunned. Simpler without me and Ethan? I didn't say that, she replied, too quickly. You kind of did. She sighed like I was being unreasonable. I just think it'll be less stressful. Megan's not comfortable traveling with too many people right now. And you know Ethan's a handful. He's 7, I said. And he was excited for this. I'm sorry, she said, but there was no sincerity in it. Just a tired script. Things change. I didn't say much after that. I fixed the faucet. I drove home. I told Ethan the trip was canceled. He didn't cry, but he got really quiet. He just sat on the couch and stared at the floor. Later, I found him trying to stuff all his toy dinosaurs into his backpack. In case we still go, he said. That night, I stared at the ceiling and something in me snapped a little. I wasn't even angry, at least not in the loud, yelling way. It was more like a deep, cold detachment. Like something that had always been holding me to them just quietly dissolved. I didn't text my mom for a while after that. I didn't check in. Didn't answer when she sent me a blurry photo of a palm tree with the caption, "Wish you were here." And I definitely didn't respond when she sent a group message tagging Trevor and Megan in some family bonding beach photo. It wasn't until a month later that she called me. And not to apologize. No, she called because she was confused why the electricity bill hadn't been paid yet. Blake, I just got a notice from the power company, she said. They're saying the payment's overdue. You usually take care of this by now. I was sitting at my kitchen table, sorting through some of Ethan's school forms. I let the silence hang just a little too long. Hello, she said, irritated now. You should ask the ones you took on vacation, I said calmly. There was a pause on the line. A long one. Then, what's that supposed to mean? I didn't explain, because by then, I'd already decided. Something in our dynamic was going to change, and I wasn't going to be the one paying for everything, literally or emotionally, anymore. But I hadn't told her the full plan yet. Not even close. And when I did, it was going to hit her like a storm. I didn't hear from her for a few days after that phone call. I figured she was stewing. Maybe she thought I was bluffing, just having a little tantrum because my feelings got hurt. That's the way she always framed things when I stood up for myself. You're being dramatic, she'd say. Or, you always take things so personally. She didn't understand that it wasn't about the trip. Not really. It was the culmination of years of quietly being the fallback plan, the built-in babysitter, the unpaid handyman, the human ATM. But this time, I stayed quiet. I didn't reach out. I didn't cave. And that silence must have started getting to her, because a week later, she sent me a text that said, "Hey, can we talk? I think you're misunderstanding everything." I ignored it. Then another one. "Trevor and Megan didn't mean to exclude you. It just happened that way." Still ignored it. The truth is, I was tired of being misunderstood only when it was convenient for her. And I had bigger things to focus on. Like Ethan, who had started asking fewer questions about the trip, but had gotten clingier. I noticed he started double-checking if plans were really going to happen now. Like if we said we'd go to the park, he'd say, "Are you sure it won't get canceled?" The kind of stuff that hits you deeper than you expect. Made me feel like I'd failed him somehow, even though I knew I hadn't been the one to pull the rug out from under him. Around that time, Trevor started showing up in my mom's Facebook posts more and more. There was one of him and Megan standing on a balcony in Miami, holding matching cocktails, with a caption that said, "So proud of my son and daughter-in-law to be." Daughter-in-law to be. Like Megan was already family, more so than me and my actual child. Another one was a picture of the three of them at some beachfront restaurant, laughing over oysters. She tagged it, "Best week ever with my favorite people." Ethan saw one of the photos over my shoulder. "Is that Grandma?" he asked. "Yeah, Bud," I said, flipping the screen away. "Just some old pictures." "She said we were going to go too," he mumbled. And that's when it hit me that this wasn't just my wound. She didn't just betray me, she betrayed him too. And Ethan, bless his heart, didn't even have the full emotional vocabulary yet to express how that felt. 3 weeks later, I found out they were throwing an engagement party for Trevor and Megan at my mom's house. She didn't invite me. Well, to be fair, she did. Technically, I got a forwarded invite from someone else, a cousin I hadn't seen in months. No personal message, no phone call, no "Hey, I know things have been tense, but I hope you'll come." Just a digital invitation that said, "Join us in celebrating Trevor and Megan's love." and a location pin that led straight to the house I helped pay for the siding on 3 years ago. At first, I wasn't going to go. I didn't want to give them the satisfaction. But something in me twisted, and I thought, no, you show up. You look them in the eye. You show them what they threw away. I didn't bring Ethan. I wasn't about to subject him to that. Instead, I dropped him off at his mom's and drove over alone. I wore a button-up and jeans. Nothing fancy, but presentable. When I pulled up, I realized cars were already lining both sides of the street. Must have been 30 or 40 people there. Laughter spilled out of the backyard, along with the smell of catered food, barbecue, from the smell of it. I walked in through the side gate. No one noticed me at first. I saw Megan surrounded by a group of her friends, giggling as she opened a silver-wrapped gift. Trevor stood nearby with a beer, looking proud of himself. And Mom, she was glowing. Not just smiling, but full-blown glowing. She had on this coral blouse and gold earrings I recognized as the ones I bought her for Mother's Day 2 years ago. The same ones she once said weren't really her style. Guess they were now. When she finally spotted me, her smile faltered for a second. Just a flicker. Then she plastered it back on and came over with a glass of wine in her hand. "Blake," she said, loud and chipper. "You made it." "Yup," I said flatly. "Got the invite. Eventually." "Oh, don't be like that," she said, brushing off the comment. "It's a celebration." "Sure is," I said. "All this for Trevor. Must have cost a fortune." She blinked, then shrugged. "It's worth it. He's getting married. It's a once-in-a-lifetime thing." I gave her a look. "So was that family vacation?" Her jaw tightened. She didn't reply. "Blake," she said eventually, quieter now. "Can we not do this here? Please." "Sure," I said, still smiling. "Let's not. Wouldn't want to make anything simpler." I didn't stay long. Maybe 20 minutes. Just long enough for them to know I was there. Long enough to see how easily they'd replace me. How little they even noticed my absence until I showed up. I left without saying goodbye. A week later, I got the real gut punch. Mom called me. This time, she didn't beat around the bush. No fake cheer, no subtle guilt tripping. Just pure entitlement. "Blake, I need to ask you something," she said. "What now?" "Well, Megan and Trevor are talking about getting a new place. Something a little bigger, maybe with a yard for when they have kids. I was wondering if you'd be willing to co-sign." I almost laughed. Actually, no, I did laugh. Right into the phone. "You want me to co-sign a mortgage for Trevor?" She cleared her throat. "It would mean a lot to him. You know how hard it is for young couples to qualify these days. And what, exactly, does that have to do with me?" "Blake, come on. You're in a good place financially. You're single. You don't have as many obligations. I have a child." "You know what I mean," she said quickly. "Trevor's your brother. Family helps family. That phrase. That cursed phrase. Family helps family. I'd heard it so many times over the years, usually right before I was asked to give something up. "Funny," I said, "because I didn't see much of that family help when I was scraping together money to fix Ethan's school laptop, or when I was covering your heating bill last winter." "That's not fair," she snapped. "Neither is asking me to put my name on a loan for someone who just cut me and my son out of a family trip and threw a party without us." There was silence on the line. Then she said something I'll never forget. "Blake, you always make things about you. You hold on to these little slights and blow them up into something they're not. Trevor isn't perfect, but he's trying. And Megan, well, she's going to be part of this family whether you like it or not. I just wish you could support them the way you say you support me." "I do support you," I said. "I have. For years." "Then act like it." That was the moment. The real breaking point. Not the canceled trip. Not the engagement party. Not even the audacity to ask for a mortgage favor. It was hearing my mother tell me to act like I support her after I'd spent over a decade being the silent scaffolding that held up her life. All while Trevor waltzed through his 20s with barely a care in the world, always shielded, always praised, always the golden boy. And it was in that moment that I realized something painfully simple. I wasn't part of this family. Not in the way they were. I was a tool, a resource, a safety net. And once I stopped serving that function, I became disposable. I didn't say anything else. I hung up, and I didn't call back. But I started planning. Quietly, carefully, because if they thought I was done, they hadn't been paying attention. They hadn't seen what I'd learned all these years while holding things together. They hadn't seen how much I actually controlled. And they were about to find out. After I hung up on my mom that day, I didn't move for a while. Just sat there on the edge of my bed, staring at the phone in my hand like it might ring again, and she'd magically say something different. Something kind. Something human. But of course it didn't. She'd said what she meant, and more importantly, she meant what she said. For the first time in my life, I finally let myself believe that. There was no part of me left that wanted to explain myself, or try and make her understand how much it hurt. I realized then that I'd spent my entire adult life trying to earn something that was never going to be given to me freely, basic respect. Not even love. I think I gave up hoping for unconditional love a long time ago. But just simple, decent, mutual respect. And if she couldn't even give me that after everything I'd done, then what was I holding on to? Still, the fallout hit hard. Harder than I thought it would. You always imagine breaking away from toxic family will feel empowering. Like you'll slam the door and walk off into the sunset, finally free. But it didn't feel like that. Not at first. It felt empty. Like the ground I'd been standing on had vanished, and I was just falling in slow motion, waiting to hit the bottom. The next few weeks were rough. I stopped sleeping well. I'd lie awake at night replaying old arguments, old holidays, even good memories, but they all felt poison now. I found myself scrolling through old texts from her, little, thanks again, Blake, you're a lifesaver, messages that once made me feel appreciated. But now they read like a customer thanking a cashier for bagging their groceries. Polite, empty, transactional. I didn't tell many people what had happened. Not even close friends. I wasn't ready to say it out loud. Part of me was still embarrassed, like I'd been conned and didn't even see it coming. And worse, like I'd let my son get caught in it too. One night, about a month later, Ethan and I were sitting on the living room floor building a Lego castle. He was focused on the drawbridge while I handled the towers. At one point, he looked up and asked, "Daddy, are we still going to Grandma's for Christmas?" The question hit me like a truck. I didn't know what to say. It was October. We hadn't even bought Halloween costumes yet. And here he was, thinking about Christmas. Thinking about whether he'd still be welcome in a house that didn't care if he came at all. I hesitated. "We might do something different this year," I said slowly. "Maybe just us. Maybe something fun." He tilted his head. "Like what?" I paused. "What would you want to do? If it could be anything?" He thought for a second. "Can we go to the snow?" I smiled, even though my heart ached. "Yeah, bud. I think we can do that." That night, after he went to bed, I pulled out my laptop and started researching places to take a father-son trip in December. I didn't have the kind of cash I'd had when I booked the mountain cabin for everyone, but I had enough. I found a cozy Airbnb in Vermont, a little log cabin, not fancy, but perfect for two. Fireplace, sledding hills nearby, even a tiny train-themed Christmas village half an hour away. I booked it that night. That trip became the first brick in what I would later realize was my rebuild. Around the same time, something shifted at work. I'd been with the same company for almost 9 years, project management at a mid-sized tech firm. Steady job, good benefits, nothing glamorous. But the new VP had been quietly observing people's contributions over the past quarter, and apparently my name kept coming up. I was offered a chance to lead a new client onboarding initiative, something high visibility, high responsibility, and for the first time, high recognition. Normally, I would have second-guessed myself, wondered if I was really the right fit, if I should wait another year. But I said yes. Without hesitation, I threw myself into that project, not out of vengeance or to prove them wrong, but because for the first time in a long time, I was doing something where effort equaled reward, where my work was seen, not assumed, where I could build something and no one would steal credit for it. My weekends were still Ethan time. We started making it a ritual, Saturday pancakes, then some kind of mini adventure, the science museum, a quiet hike, a soccer game, just us. And on Sunday nights, after I dropped him off at his mom's, I'd come home, crack open a craft beer, and spend an hour journaling. At first it was messy and angry, page after page of, how could they? Why didn't she care? But slowly it changed. I started writing about what I wanted my life to look like, what I wanted Ethan to remember about these years, what kind of father I needed to be, not just to protect him, but to show him how to walk away when people stop treating you right. It was strange how much space I suddenly had. Emotional space, mental space, financial space, even. The power bill didn't randomly spike because Mom left the heat blasting for a week. I wasn't fielding calls about broken faucets or pest problems in a house I didn't live in. I wasn't buying groceries for 3 households anymore. and I started noticing how quiet my phone had become. Trevor never reached out. Not once. Not to ask why I hadn't shown up for Thanksgiving. Not to check in on Ethan. Nothing. Which told me all I needed to know. The final confirmation came when a mutual family friend, my Aunt Denise, reached out. She and my mom had been close once, but they'd drifted over the years. She'd always liked me, though. She called me out of the blue one evening. "Hey, Blake," she said gently. "Mind if I ask you something?" "Sure," I said cautiously. "I saw a photo on Facebook. Your mom posted it. Trevor and Megan's baby shower." I blinked. "Baby shower?" "Yeah," she said. "Apparently Megan's 6 months along." My stomach dropped. "They didn't tell you?" "No," I said, trying to keep my voice even. "They didn't." "I'm so sorry, sweetheart," she said. "I figured maybe you were just keeping it private. But when I asked about you, your mom said you were doing your own thing these days. Like you'd left the family." I let out a dry laugh. "Yeah, I guess that's one way to spin it." Denise hesitated. "I just wanted you to know. I see what's happening. And it's not right." After we hung up, I sat there for a long time. 6 months along. That meant Megan had already been pregnant when I got that call about co-signing a mortgage. When they asked me to put my name on a house that would be for their new little family. A family they had no intention of including me in. That was the last little ember of hope burning in the corner of my heart, and it went out completely. But this time, it didn't feel like loss. It felt like clarity. I wasn't part of their story anymore. But maybe that was a good thing. By the time December rolled around, I'd finished the onboarding project and been offered a promotion, official team lead. A raise. My own office. I accepted it on the spot. Ethan and I went on our Vermont trip a few days before Christmas. The cabin was perfect. We built a snowman, drank hot cocoa, stayed up late watching cheesy holiday movies. I even surprised him with a model train set that we set up under the little tree the Airbnb host had left decorated. One night, as we were getting ready for bed, he looked at me and said, "This is the best Christmas ever." I didn't cry, not until he was asleep, because I realized something then. I wasn't rebuilding my life. I was building it for the first time. And this time, I wasn't building it for people who only saw me as useful. I was building it for us, me and Ethan. But I wasn't done. Not quite. Because even as I found peace, I hadn't forgotten everything they'd taken for granted. And soon, I'd be taking something back. Not out of spite, not out of anger, but because it was mine. And they never even bothered to say thank you. When we got back from Vermont, everything was different, and not just in the obvious, surface-level ways. Something in me had hardened, but not in a bitter way. I'd let go of needing them, and with that freedom came a strange kind of clarity. For the first time in my life, I could see them for who they really were. My mother, Trevor, Megan, not through the fog of guilt or obligation, but through the lens of truth. And the truth was, they never really saw me as part of the family. Not in any meaningful sense. I was a support beam, a financial cushion, the guy who'd always say yes, the one who'd never say what about me. So when I stopped doing those things, stopped enabling them, they treated it like a betrayal. Which was funny, really, because they'd been betraying me for years. They just did it with smiles on their faces and wine glasses in their hands. That trip with Ethan made one thing painfully clear. I had a responsibility to protect him from becoming a version of me, a man raised to think he has to earn love through labor, silence, and sacrifice. And part of that meant teaching him, through action, that some boundaries are worth defending. Some lines, once crossed, deserve consequences. I started planning in January. Quietly, methodically. Not because I wanted drama. Quite the opposite. I wanted precision. I wanted my revenge to be the kind you couldn't scream your way out of. Not a blow-up. Not a public tantrum. I wasn't going to yell, throw anything, or write a Facebook post like my mother often did after even minor inconveniences. No, mine would be silent. And permanent. The first step was legal. See, back when my mom first started falling behind on bills, this was maybe 6 or 7 years ago, I helped her refinance the house. Her credit wasn't great. She was months behind on the mortgage, and she was terrified of foreclosure. So I stepped in, used my credit, my income, and my name to qualify for a new mortgage. She couldn't get approved alone, so I became co-owner. Technically, I owned 51%. At the time, she cried and said she'd pay me back every cent. She didn't, but I never pushed it. I let it slide, year after year, because I figured, what's the point? It's family. But now, Now it meant something entirely different. So I called a real estate attorney, told him everything, sent him the documents, the agreement, the ownership structure. We met twice in person. He was thorough, calm, and surprisingly direct. "Blake," he said at the end of our second meeting, tapping the folder on his desk, "you are, on paper, the majority owner of that home, which means you have options." "Eviction?" I asked, not even sure I liked the word. He shook his head. "Not exactly, but you can force a sale, or, at the very least, reclaim financial control. If you wanted to, you could require her to buy out your share at current market value. And if she can't, you could list the property." It felt surreal, like holding a detonator I didn't know I'd been carrying. "I'm not trying to be cruel," I told him. "I just want my life back." "Then let's get to work," he said. Over the next few weeks, we started building a case. Every payment I'd made, every repair I'd covered, every dime she said she'd get me back for, and never did. He created a paper trail so clean you could eat off it. Every text, every bank transfer, every Venmo receipt from the years before she learned to use Zelle. At the same time, I started calling around to see if I could find out more about Trevor and Megan's living situation. They'd been quiet, which worried me more than if they'd been bragging. My cousin Vanessa, a kind soul who always kind of saw through the family politics, was the one who clued me in. "They've been trying to get a mortgage approved since September," she said. "I think Megan's credit isn't great. Trevor's not much better. I heard your mom was going to co-sign." I almost choked. "My mom?" "Yeah. She told my dad she might put the house up as collateral for a personal loan." It took a full minute for that to register. She was going to risk my house to help them get another house. She wasn't just excluding me. She was planning around me, using an asset tied to my name to make a future for the golden child and his Pinterest wife, while quietly keeping me in the dark. The rage I felt wasn't loud. It was cold. Still, the kind of fury that doesn't make you scream, it makes you plan. My lawyer drafted a formal letter of intent. If my mother couldn't buy out my share of the home within 60 days, I reserved the right to sell. We included an itemized history of my contributions, over $46,000 worth of payments, repairs, upgrades, and property tax coverage. We also included a note clarifying that, legally, any attempt to use the home as collateral without my consent would be considered mortgage fraud. I didn't send it yet. Timing mattered. Instead, I started cleaning up my own financial profile, paid off the last of my car loan, consolidated my student loans under a better rate, created an airtight budget, and started saving aggressively. I wasn't just preparing to reclaim my stake in that house. I was preparing to be completely untouchable. At work, things kept climbing. My team had just closed our biggest client yet, and my name was attached to every stage of the process. My boss mentioned my performance during a department-wide meeting and called me the quiet engine that drives everything forward. It was the first time in my professional life I'd felt truly seen. And still, through all of this, my phone stayed quiet. No word from Trevor. No apology from my mom. Just silence. Until mid-March. That's when it happened. She called me, voice chipper, as if nothing had happened. "Hey, Blake. Long time no talk." "Yeah," I said. "It has been. I wanted to check in about Easter. I was thinking we could do a brunch. Just the family. Maybe a little egg hunt for Ethan." I didn't say anything. She pressed on. "Trevor and Megan are going to bring a big announcement. I can't say anything yet, but let's just say it might involve a gender reveal." I let the silence stretch just a little too long. Then I said, "Actually, I won't be coming." She sounded startled. "What? Why not?" "I think you know why not." "Blake," she said, her voice tightening. "This is getting ridiculous. That trip stuff is months behind us. Can't you just let it go?" "I did," I said. "That's the problem." Another silence. Then she said something she thought would guilt me. "You're going to punish your own nephew or niece just to make a point?" And that's when I knew. She still didn't get it. This wasn't about revenge. Not yet. This was about clarity. "No," I said. "I'm going to protect my son. From people who treat him like a spare part." She scoffed. "You're being dramatic again." "No," I said calmly. "I'm being strategic." She didn't understand what that meant. But she would. The next morning, my lawyer sent the letter. And the countdown began. 60 days. 60 days to either buy me out or prepare to lose the house. I didn't warn her. I didn't answer when she called, or when she texted 20 minutes later. "What is this? Are you serious?" Dead serious. And I wasn't bluffing. Because what they'd built, this illusion of a perfect little family, was sitting on a foundation I owned. And they never once thought to ask if I wanted to stay part of it. But that was okay. I had 51%. And that was about to matter more than they ever realized. The fallout began exactly 13 days after the letter was delivered. I remember the date because it was the first time in years my mother showed up at my house unannounced. I heard the knock on the door while Ethan and I were in the middle of a Saturday morning pancake session. He had chocolate smeared across his cheek and was giggling at the shape of a pancake that looked vaguely like a dinosaur. The knock came again, harder this time. Not urgent, just entitled. I opened the door, and there she stood. Marcy, my mother, in all her self-righteous glory. Arms crossed. No hello. No smile. We need to talk, she said flatly. I stepped outside, closed the door behind me, and didn't invite her in. I got your letter, she said. I assume this is some kind of joke. No joke, I said calmly. You're really threatening to sell the house? To throw me out of my own home? Not your home, I corrected. Our home. And I'm not threatening. I'm giving you a legal opportunity to buy me out. If you can't, then yes, I'll initiate a sale. Her mouth opened, then closed again. She wasn't used to this version of me, the one who didn't flinch. Why are you doing this? She finally spat. After everything I've done for you. I blinked. You mean everything I've done for you? She launched into one of her classic guilt monologues. About raising me alone. About the sacrifices she made. About how Trevor needed more because he was sensitive and how I was always independent. About how Megan brought her joy during a difficult time. Not once did she mention Ethan. Not once did she acknowledge that my son, her grandson, had been casually erased from every family event for the past year. I listened, silently. When she finally finished, I asked one question. Can you afford to buy me out? She stared at me. You know I can't. Then you've got 57 days left to figure out what you're going to do. She stormed off. And that was the last civil conversation we had. I expected pushback, of course. Emotional manipulation. Family gossip. Maybe even legal threats. What I didn't expect was how quickly the facade would start to crack once money was on the line. Word got out fast. My cousin Vanessa texted me 2 days later. Your mom's telling people you're stealing the house from under her. Want me to set the record straight? I told her she didn't have to get involved. She did anyway. And apparently, she wasn't the only one who saw through the performance. My Aunt Denise called me again. Blake, I just want you to know, I read the letter. Your mom showed it to me, probably hoping I'd take her side. But everything in there looks fair to me. That quiet support meant more than I expected. But the real twist came when Trevor reached out. Via email. No greeting. No apology. Just a short, irritated message. What the hell are you doing? Mom's a wreck. You know she can't pay you. Just drop it. I replied with a single sentence. Funny. I don't remember you stepping in to help her when she needed mortgage support 6 years ago. He didn't reply. 30 days in, my mother's tone changed. No more angry texts. Instead, she left a voicemail, her voice soft, trembling. Blake, I'm scared. I don't know where I'd go. This is my home. It's where I raised you. I'm not perfect, but can't we find another way? I stared at my phone for a long time. Then I deleted the message. Not because I didn't care, but because I'd finally learned the difference between caring and being responsible for someone else's consequences. She had 60 days to make this right. And she chose denial. Day 43, the escalation began. I got a call from a bank, a mortgage lender. They wanted to verify a request to use the property as collateral for a personal loan. I froze. Who submitted that request? The agent hesitated. I'm not at liberty to. This is Blake Moran, I interrupted. Primary owner of the property in question. If my name is being used without consent, that's fraud. Check your documents again. There was a pause. Then she said, I see. I'm going to escalate this to our legal department. I hung up and called my lawyer immediately. Within 2 hours, he had filed a cease and desist order. It wasn't just desperation anymore. It was recklessness. They were trying to go around me, probably thinking if they pushed hard enough, I'd fold. But I didn't fold. I filed the paperwork to force a sale. When the real estate agent showed up to do an evaluation, my mom refused to let him in. She screamed at him from behind the screen door, accused him of harassment, told him I was mentally unstable. He called me afterward, bewildered. Blake, I've done dozens of these, but I've never been yelled at by a woman in slippers before I even got to the driveway. I apologized. She's Complicated. We rescheduled. This time, with a court order allowing property access. By day 54, the house was officially listed for sale. And then it got ugly. Trevor showed up at my office. No warning. No appointment. Just barged into the lobby like he owned the place. I found him arguing with the receptionist. "Get your brother down here," he was saying, "or I'm not leaving." I walked out and faced him calmly. "You have 2 minutes." He launched into his speech. About how I was humiliating the family. About how I'd forced our mother into panic attacks. About how Megan was pregnant and couldn't handle the stress. He tried to make me feel small, selfish, heartless. And I stood there, silent. When he paused for breath, I asked him one question. "Trevor, do you know how many times I covered the mortgage before Mom even told you she was in trouble?" He looked confused. "What does that have to do with anything?" "Exactly," I said. "You never asked." I walked back to my office and left him standing there. He never came back. On day 60, the house went into contract. We had 3 offers. I accepted the highest. My mother had no choice but to move out. She didn't call, didn't write, didn't show up to say goodbye. She just vanished into a flurry of packing tape and passive-aggressive Facebook posts. And you know what? I didn't feel triumphant. I felt clean. The proceeds were split, 51% to me, 49% to her. After legal fees and unpaid debts, she walked away with far less than she expected. I used my share to pay off my condo and put the rest into a college fund for Ethan. He never knew the full story. I didn't want him to grow up hating anyone. But he knew that Grandma didn't come around anymore. And he didn't ask why. I think, deep down, he already knew. A few months later, I got a card in the mail. No return address. Inside was a baby photo, Trevor and Megan's newborn. A girl. There was no note. Just the name. Marcy. I stared at it for a long time. The woman who erased me had named a child after herself. Like she was trying to leave behind a legacy. But legacy isn't built on names. It's built on actions. And mine was finally my own. I'm not angry anymore. I don't waste energy wishing things had gone differently. I've learned that you can't build a peaceful life on unstable ground. Sometimes, you have to burn the old foundation to the ground before you can lay new bricks. I don't miss the drama. I don't miss the obligation. I don't even miss the hope that they'll change. Because I changed. And in the end, that was the real revenge. I didn't destroy them. I just refused to keep holding them up. And when I stepped away, they crumbled all by themselves.